Good morning. Isn't it a lovely day? The sun is out and we have a mixed market to talk about. So let's just take a look here and see what's going on. You're tuned into the PulseWave Report with yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave Price Trigger Reports. All right, so this end of day report is acting as the end of day plus the pre-market pulse scan. We're just calling it the pulse wave report for short. How about that? So we're doing a pulse wave report, and we're going to first of all look at these overnight markets because the bell is about to ring. The Dow futures is up 110 points at 29,157. The Nasdaq 100 is down 136 and three quarter points at 11,683 and three quarters. Even the S&P 500 is down 13 and a half at 35.31 even. Russell My Hustle is up 16.6 points at 1719.7. Bitcoin holding steady, only down 110. It's trading at 15,340. Nat gas is up 2 pennies at $2.88. Crude oil futures are up 57 cents a barrel at $40.87 a barrel. Long bond is down 330 seconds at 170 and 330 seconds. Gold futures up $23.50 after being down almost $100 yesterday. It's trading at $1,878.30 an ounce. Silver is up 61 cents, trading at $24.31 an ounce. The euro down 29 pips at 118.14. Pound sterling is up 70 pips at 132.42. Australian dollars down 29 at 72.65. US dollar index is up 8 at 92.80. Yeah, and that 92 handle, y'all. Soybeans up 6 and three quarter points at 11.17 and a quarter. Excuse me. At this rate, will we see beans in the teens before year end? Corn is up 4 at 411 and a half, and wheat is up 1 and a quarter points at 598 and three quarters. All right, so yesterday was a very strange and busy day. Markets were just going bananas. They were whipsawing every which way. Dow being up heavy, just crazy. And the reason that the markets were behaving as such is because everyone's, oh man, Pfizer and them dudes, they got a cure for the COVID. Really? Really? Oh, this is great. But you got to ask yourself a question. I think the timing of that release, just 6 days after the election, is extremely suspicious. All right, there's your opening bell for those that need to handle some business. Notice how prior to all of this, prior to the election, the opponents of Donald Trump knew that the virus was going to be a weak point that they could really hone in on. And they kept saying there's not going to be a vaccine until next year or 2 years or whatever, right? And he kept saying, no, we close. We're going to have this even possibly in October, right? And they kept saying it up until the election. No, there's no vaccine for a minute. And then just 6 days afterwards, Pfizer makes the report, or whoever the company was, hey, we got a vaccine, and it performed well in test trials, blah, blah, blah. So then we wake up Monday morning, and the Dow is up 1,700 points. All right, and gold and silver are getting destroyed. So funny how they waited just a few days after the election, then they break that story after it looks like Biden has officially won the presidency. So the timing of that release is pretty devastating to Trump because they held it and waited after the fact. They didn't release that before the election. That's right, folks. I told you this conspiracy runs deep. We're talking about some deep state, the pharmaceutical industrial complex. We're talking about some wild stuff, ladies and gentlemen. So, yes, they demonstrated yesterday that they can control the markets and they can make it do whatever they want it to do. I know it's hard to believe. I know you don't want to believe that. I know it's hard. You don't think I know that? I know it's difficult for you. I know you don't want to believe that you live in a place that is straight up shady. Who wants to believe that? That where you live is shady. I know it hurts the heart. It hurts the heart to even think about it, but you got to think about it. You have to acknowledge where it is that you live, folks. So I just want to show you something. All right, I just want to show you a few things this morning. Not gonna keep you long. I just want to go over a few things. I want you to see what I see. Now, I was in the lab all day and most of the night, and then again early this morning, working on a few things that I wish to bring to you guys' attention and to show you what's up so you can see what's really going on in the world. And then we're going to call it a day. I need to finish what I was working on in the lab so that I can have it ready for you guys for this evening's reports when they come out. Yeah, man. I stay in the lab, I stay working. What I normally do, and I encourage you all to do the same thing. I always learn a lot more from my losing moments than I do from my winning moments. So I go back and I check and I look because the first thing I want to know is what happened just an anomaly with something that's impossible to have accounted for, or did I miss something that I should not have missed, that I should have seen? I look at all that stuff. I look at all of that because I want to know what it is that I don't know. I've always been that way. So I do my research. I look and see what happened. Could I have seen the uncertainty coming, or was I too focused in another area? Or was this just an anomaly, meaning that it was a moment in time that there was just some issues going on that I could have never prepared for? So I look at stuff like that. We know how they move in this space. But like I said, the timing of that message was done on purpose. There's no other way to look at it. All right, so let's get into some charts this morning. I just want to look at a few charts with you so you can have an idea of what it is that I'm seeing. All right. So first things first, take a look at the Facebook chart. Let's do that first. All right, this is Facebook. All right, so as you see, we have the rally alert back here, and we got all this nice upside production that also generated a gap up. Then we came into this week with a crash alert in Facebook, and lo and behold, what do we get? Mad downside production from the crash alert on Monday. So we came into Monday with a crash alert. Anyone who shorted Facebook using the pulse waves, you made out like a bandit yesterday. I still believe that not only does it want to come down and fill the gap, but I think it may come down here and get close to the trend line support around the $270 mark. So that's something that I'm still watching for with Facebook. Now take a look here at what happened with silver. All right, so we come into the week here in silver, right, with a bullish bias in the market. We had the rally alert back here. We got all this continual upside production, and then boom, you get a bar like this out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, you just get boom, parabolic bar. All right, giving back all of the gains from this past rally alert, all of this upside bias broken. So what we see is that the cycle really never ended when the rallies get sold, like we got sold here and we got sold here. Okay, so that pattern continued. Now, overall, we have a crash alert coming into today. But normally, as a rule of thumb, when you get these really hyper parabolic bars, the market usually puts in, I would say probably 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, you'll get a continuation pattern follow through with an intraday reversal. Like back here, you see this big, incredible, look at this long parabolic bar. Next day continuation pattern with a bottom put in and a intraday reversal. And then you go up for a minute, right? You create this bearish pointer, a whopper of a bearish pointer. What do? You make people think, nope, that's the bottom, we're done. And then you get up here, the rally gets sold off, and then you take out the bearish pointer like you're supposed to, and put in a new low. And then you make another bearish pointer. Then you come up here, and the rally gets sold off, and then you come back up for one more time, and then the rally gets sold off. Now, we should, technically speaking, have a continuation bar down here by the close with a possible reversal. But don't forget, we got a bearish pointer right here. So it's letting me think here that this is truly over. The upward bias is truly over, and that the market is setting itself up for another leg down to take out the old pointer. But this bar came out of nowhere. Let's take a look at another one. How about the Dow futures? Let's take a look at the Dow. Let's see what happened here. All right, so here's your Dow. We made a massive bullish pointer in the Dow. We had that upward bias coming into Monday. Here's your rally alert right here. Here's your continued upward production. We got nasty upside production. Dow hits that 30,000 and then falls down into the close. So regardless of what happens, we know we're coming back to that 30,000. Even if the market pulls back and tests trend line support around the between 27.5 and 28, we know it's coming back up here to take this pointer out. The timing on it can be a little iffy because, like I've told you throughout the last decade here on YouTube, it is almost nearly impossible to predict price with time. You can predict price all day long and do so rather consistently, but what is difficult to do is to add the time projection to it. All right, so this, we knew that the bias was still up coming into Monday. What we did not know was the size of this. This is all news driven. Had the news not broken, we probably still would have went up, but not as much as this. Okay, so the bullish bias is still into the market. So regardless of what happens today, we still maintain that bias. How did this affect the forex market? Well, let's take a look at the Australian dollar real quick. All right, so we had the rally alert back here. Nice upside production. All right, here's how news can affect markets. We came into Monday with a crash alert looking for the market to top out and roll over. Instead, we get a breakout bar. We get a bullish pointer bar created right here beautifully. So even if the market does pull back and comes down to test the trend line support, guess what? We know it's coming back up to take out this pointer. And then, of course, you got the chief pointer back here. So we know the market is going to come up here at some point. You got to come out this one and you got to come back and do this one. So very interesting setups. Doesn't matter if it's a news event or a terrorist attack, doesn't matter. When patterns are broken like that in the markets, sometimes you can have technical damage on your chart. Other times you just get this wacky period, this anomaly where you have a daily pivot and then you come back to what you were doing. So like here in the Bitcoin futures, we came into this week with this the bullish bias in the market. Your last rally alert was back here. You got all this upside production. Those that have been riding with the Bitcoin using the pulse waves have been setting pretty for a minute. All right, so some of you got out on this bar yesterday and took profit. Others are still long the market. Okay, so this is a crash alert that we got for tonight. I'm sorry, for last night coming into today's trading that you need to look out for. Now, the market was down a little bit this morning, but you do need to look out for that. So if you're along the market, you really should be using the pop method to lock in profit and to have a place to get out. How about the euro dollar? How did the news yesterday affect the euro dollar? Well, let's take a look. So the euro dollar came into this week with a longer term bearish bias in the market. All right, it came from back here. Your crash alert came back here, and it's been selling rallies non-stop ever since. Rallies getting sold, rallies getting sold, rallies getting sold, rallies getting sold. Boom, here's the rally here. You got another additional day of that, and then we reversed yesterday. The rally got sold yesterday. Looking at trendline support to meet that initial target. So again, that cycle hasn't stopped. You thought it was going to stop. You thought you had a little window of hope here, and you just sold off hard. And then when this, before you got to Monday, this is Monday's bar, you had this, and you're like, okay, maybe we're gonna get a do-over from this. Maybe the pattern's gonna reverse, but no, boom, you came right back down again. So the market's trying to make its mind up. Does it want to break out of the consolidation pattern, or does it want to start trending? So that's where you are now. But you're in a longer term trading range where the rallies are being sold. All right, you have a downward bias in this market. Okay, it is what it is. Hey, what up, my brothers in the room? What up, man? Hey, I saw your thing, your message. Like I said, I was swamped. I've been swamped for the last 24 hours, but I will get at you, man. I will get at you. But thanks, man. Thanks for showing up in the live chat this morning. All right. Let's see here. Where are we? Okay. So as you can see, a lot of the markets right now are almost, you want to say, like some type of a holding pattern, and all yesterday did was make the pattern even more sloppy. All right, here's the euro yen. Now notice this. This is the rally alert here. Okay. We got upside production, right? Then we got a pause. Then we got this explosion up higher. Now we knew coming into this week, right, for trading for Monday, that we had an upward bias, and we were looking for at least a little bit of more upward momentum to get us to that trend line resistance. Well, the market exploded and got way past that. It blew past the bottom of the Kumo cloud, blew past the top of the Kumo cloud before reversing and closing back in the cloud. All right, so again, you got these wacko situations where the markets can be moved by news in the weirdest of ways. Now, your euro yen historically normally likes to move with the stock market. Okay, it likes to follow that Dow, the S&P, Nasdaq, Russell, whatever, and oftentimes it can be a leading indicator. And what you have here is you had this long-term downward bias. You had a long-term upward bias. Then we bottomed out, got the rally alert, upside production. So the bullish bias is still in the euro yen for now with the bullish weekly trend momentum reading. We blew past all resistance levels, made a little bullish pointer here. So right now, it is probably, this is a normal type of a situation where you will get a protracted period of time where the markets will move within the established range. So the parabolic bar acts as your trading range. So I'm anticipating that over the next several days, maybe even a couple of weeks of just moving within this bar. This bar is the new bar set. Worst case scenario, you move sideways into the end of the year. Or best case scenario, the market picks a direction and sticks with it and runs and puts money in your pocket. But just keep that in mind. These parabolic bars tend to create trading ranges for a minute until the market decides it wants to break out of it. Look at the last bar here. Move sideways for a minute till the market said, okay, I'm done. Back here, market said, okay, I'm going to trade within this range for a minute. Head fake, back. I'm out of the range. So when you see these bars like that, you got to be prepared for that type of price action. What about the British pound? What about that pound sterling? What about the pound sterling? Well, take a look at the British pound. So coming into this week, we still had the upward bias in the market, hence the rally alert back here. Look at all the several weeks of upside production you were getting from that rally alert. And then you didn't really get that much of a knee-jerk reaction. The market just moved as anticipated. So your pound is really didn't really benefit from that parabolic move yesterday. And that's mainly because of all the Brexit worries and news that it's trying to deal with. So it has its own issues going on right now. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at the crude oil sector by way of the OIH ETF. All right, so you had that nice explosion upward in the oil yesterday, right? The news affected oil. So check this out. Here is your rally alert here. You had your upward bias coming into the market on Monday, and finally, what did you do? You got your explosion. Isn't that interesting? So the market gave you all that upside production. So you will be looking to pop your way through it. Use the pop method to lock in those profits because you know this gap is going to have to be back and filled at some point. All right, but the bias is still locked in the market, and you got a bullish weekly trend momentum reading. But you're in the Kumo cloud too, so keep that also in mind. What about the Bitcoin ETF GBTC? How did that fare on yesterday's move? Well, peep it. So we had the upward trajectory. We had the bullish bias in the market coming into this week. Here was your rally alert. Here's the upside production you got. But this gap was created last week. So we knew coming into this week that we could, at some point, this was going to have to be dealt with. Well, the market chose yesterday to do it, and that created a crash alert for today's trading, and you made a bearish pointer, even though you came and rallied into the close. This bearish pointer lets you know that the gap has been filled. That's why it did what it did, but it created a pointer. So it can rally from here nice and not have to pull back anytime soon per se. But this bearish pointer is letting you know that whatever upside you see at this point will be muted because you still never dealt with the gap back here or the gap back here. All right, or the gap back here. So this market cannot really do what it needs to do until those gaps are filled. All right. I know, weird, isn't it? How about your Ethereum ETF? Well, let's take a look at that one. So we saw GBTC. Now we're looking at ETHE, the ETF. Crash alert for this one coming into today. Yesterday's market news didn't do anything for this Ethereum. It's still doing what it's doing. Here's your rally alert. So you got your bullish bias baked in. You got an upward production last week. And then yesterday, this is all you did. So you got to look out for the crash alert today in the Ethereum ETF. What about the E-mini S&P 500? Well, again, here's how that fared. So you can see here where the market came in and it exploded higher as well, but it also made a bullish pointer. Here is your rally alert here, and look at all the upward production that you've been receiving since the rally alert, and then you made this bullish pointer. So even on a pullback, if we get back to the trend line here, nothing to suggest that that's definitely going to happen. But right now, as you can see, we got the bullish pointer. So at some point, you got to come up there and reconcile that. So we still got bullish bias in the Dow and the S&P futures. Yeah, but what about gold? Okay, well, here's what happened to your gold yesterday. Look at that. Again, we came into the week with the bullish upward bias. We had the rally alert. We were getting all this nice upside production. And then look at this parabolic bar. erasing all of your upward gains. And it also not only erased all the gains, but it took out your support and put in a new leg lower, put in a new low. Right. That's absurd, man. That is absurd, you know? Almost took out the support from back here. So this one though, here's the difficult part with your gold. Gold gave you no clues yesterday. Zero. What do I mean by that? You don't have a bullish or a bearish pointer. You just have a regular bar. But it's a parabolic bar establishing the trading range more than likely for the rest of the year. Expect the market just to move inside of this range, and that's a big range to move in. You got top side 1966.10, low 1848. So you got 120 point trading range established yesterday. So you can see gold whipsaw up and down 120 points, and for the foreseeable future. I know. And it took you out of the bullish bias, put you now into a bearish bias, but because of a parabolic bar, we just expect the market to do nothing over the next several weeks, possibly. What about that NASDAQ 100? Well, the NASDAQ 100 is another one. Now, it didn't do as bad as you would have thought, though. Now, here's the rally alert. We came into this week with a bullish bias, right? News came out. Now, the market rallied, but then it reversed and closed near the lows on the day, creating a crash alert for today, which the market is down. And I think the trend line support is going to be in play for the NASDAQ. And you may ask, why is that? I'm going to tell you it's because of Facebook, okay, which is a big part of your NASDAQ. Therefore, since it has some work to do and fill in those downward gaps, I think it's going to pull the NASDAQ down with it. And the NASDAQ is about to fall down and become bearish and do what it does. Now, we do have a bearish bias now. We flip-flop from a bullish to a bearish bias. Crash alert is giving us downside production today. Trend line support around the 11,500-ish level is going to be the target for this move. So just something to think about, how these markets are starting to move. The NASDAQ is dissenting from the other indices so far. All right, how about crude oil futures? This is what the crude oil futures chart looked like. Totally different than the OIH. Totally different from the OIH crude oil ETF. The OIH crude oil ETF tracks the gold futures. So the chart should be pretty much identical, but they're not. How do we mean? We came into this week with a bearish bias in the market, and we had the downside production from the crash alert from last week, right? And then all of a sudden, explosive chart giving us a rally alert for today and a bullish pointer. All right, so this chart is trying to overcome the damage that was done to the crude oil market earlier this year during the lockdowns. Just tragic historical movement, price action that's never happened at any point in history. So the markets are trying to fix itself. And like I said, it's going to take a while for it to work itself out. And I expect this to be a sideways market until the end of the year at least. You've been moving sideways and has not stopped. Look at this. Look at this. You've been in this range for a minute. This right here is September. We're in November. And you're still in the same price you were back in September. All this whipsaw and volatility, and you're still where you were. And yes, you got this bearish pointer right here. So at some point, something has to happen. So here's how this works. You got a bullish pointer followed by a bearish pointer. This means trading range. The top of the range will be yesterday's bar. The bottom of the range will be this bar, done on November the 2nd. So expect crude oil to go nowhere for the foreseeable future and just more of the same. The last chart I want to take a look at is the Russell. All right, take a look at how the Russell responded to yesterday's trading. Well, we know coming into this week, we had the upward trajectory. We had a bullish bias. We had the rally alert back here from which we've been getting constant upside production, massive production in one day. Market backs and fills, but creates a bullish pointer in the process. All right. So again, the only descent we have is the NASDAQ. It is the only one that has not done anything. It is just crazy price action, crazy, absurd movements in the market. All that stuff has been happening, and it's because they have been not. I don't want to just say manipulation because that sounds too soft. What they have been doing to the markets is downright criminal, and no one is going to be held accountable. That it's going to be allowed to continue to do what they've been doing. Zora Rosa, I haven't seen you in the live chat in a minute. What up, peoples? What's up? What's up? You should reach out, man. How you been? What's going on with you, man? Holla at a brother. All right, so this is where we are, ladies and gentlemen, as far as the markets are concerned. I had to show you where we were and where we could possibly be headed in these markets, because it's critical, it's important that you know these things, because once you know, then you know how you can combat certain things. All right, so I wanted to show you that, and because I couldn't do it last night, I said I would do it this morning, so that's why I did it. Let's see here, what else? Give me just a second. I'm looking at something real quick. Okay, yep. I see now. I see it. Okay, I see it. I see what I needed to see. All right, now let's get into some other stuff. Some other-ish. All right. I just went over that Bitcoin chart, Oscar. I think you missed it. If you're talking about Bitcoin, BTC. Let's see. I think, yeah, that one still has the upward trajectory to it, so it's hanging in there. All right. Let's see here. All right, you guys. It is now time. The fun part is over. It's time for you now to get your cup of coffee. It's time for you to coffee, tea, whatever, and get ready, because now we got to go in. Now what we're going to talk about today is definitely going to be affecting the markets moving forward, and we have to talk about it since other people just don't want to talk about it. Well, being kept out of the news mainstream is not something that we're, that's foreign to us. We know how they move. We know how they operate. Okay. Peep this. Did you know that Biden is already talking with foreign leaders? And he hasn't been sworn in yet. And that is a breach of the Logan Act. Former Obama Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes admitted on Monday that Joe Biden is already speaking with foreign leaders as if he is the next president, a move that some believe to be a breach of the Logan Act, the same law that President Trump's former National Security Advisor, General Mike Flynn, was prosecuted under. So how can you have one person being prosecuted under it and then another one, oh, it's okay? Now, Rhodes made the comments during an MSNBC interview in which he slammed Trump for contesting the election. Quote, "We're going to have the pageantry already of the president-elect announcing his advisory board. He's going to start announcing cabinet secretaries. The center of political gravity in this country and the world is shifting to Joe Biden. Foreign leaders are already having phone calls with Joe Biden, talking about the agenda they're going to pursue. January the 20th, end quote, said Rhodes. This is the exact same scenario that an Obama advisor accused General Flynn of being in prior to Trump's inauguration. When the former national security advisor was purportedly communicating with foreign officials, including the then Russian ambassador, Flynn was forced to resign after his conversation was exposed by the FBI, which was monitoring Trump campaign officials' communications at the behest of the Obama administration. So if it's good enough for one dude, why is it not good enough for another? In addition to that, notes made by former FBI Special Agent Peter Zork, which was later made public by the Justice Department, suggested that it was Joe Biden himself who suggested using the Logan Act against Flynn at the time. Can you smell the hypocrisy? Although the claim was denied by former FBI head James Comey. After initially pleading guilty to making false statements to the FBI, Flynn retracted the plea in January of this year after claiming that the terms of his plea deal had been violated by government officials. The case is still ongoing and under review after documents pertaining to it were discovered to have been altered. If indeed Biden is speaking off the record with foreign leaders, it adds to the charges stemming from the Hunter Biden laptop case, which allegedly proves that Joe Biden was involved in dodgy foreign business deals with Chinese and Russian government agents. Yet you still gave him the White House. Do you see the corruption, ladies and gentlemen, that I've always been talking about? Do you see the corruption that is allowed to continue? But it gets a little bit more curiouser. Oh yeah, it gets curiouser. There's more going on than meets the eye. The Department of Justice, a voter fraud investigator, quits after the Attorney General William Barr authorizes a probe. That's right. In response to Attorney General Barr's decision, the New York Times reports that Richard Pilger, who oversees voter fraud investigations, has quit. Having familiarized myself with the new policy and its ramifications, I must regretfully resign from my role as director of the Election Crimes Branch. Does it not seem odd that when asked to investigate voter fraud, the gentleman who is in charge of investigating voter fraud chooses to resign rather than to do his freaking job? Perhaps it goes deeper than that, Perhaps it was his alleged involvement in the Lewis Lerner IRS targeting Tea Party group's debacle that triggered this resignation. I know you guys have short-term memories. In a day when numerous lawsuits were filed challenging the outcome of the presidential election, and when prominent Republicans such as Mitch McConnell finally came out in support of Trump's contention that the election was rigged, late on Monday, Attorney General William Barr authorized the Justice Department to launch a probe into substantial allegations of voter fraud in the 2020 election, the Associated Press first reported. Now, in a letter to U.S. attorneys across the country, Barr said they could conduct investigations if there are clear and apparently credible allegations of irregularities that, if true, could potentially impact the outcome of a federal election in an individual state. Now, according to the Washington Times, this is an unusual move, since Justice Department policy prohibits any action that could influence the outcome of an election until the vote is formally certified. But the Justice Department is responsible for ensuring the integrity of the federal elections. Now, Barr's memo comes days after presumptive President-elect Joseph R. Biden was declared the winner by several media outlets. I thought that it was up to the Department of Justice to declare the integrity of the federal elections, not the media. Since when is it the media's job to declare a winner of an election? Now, President Trump has not conceded and has launched several legal efforts challenging the results in states where the voting margins are razor thin. Now, by granting prosecutors the power to pursue such cases, U.S. attorneys around the country could give Trump more ammunition for his lawsuit. Now, the Department of Justice's action, which many Republicans will claim is long overdue, comes after Republicans in recent days turned up the heat on Barr to take some action in response to the voter fraud allegations. Earlier on Monday, Barr reportedly met with McConnell on Monday. On Friday, nearly 40 Republican members of Congress sent a letter to the Attorney General asking him to get to the bottom of the voter fraud claims. Quote, "What are you doing to ensure the integrity of the voting and counting process right now?" End quote. The Republicans asked Mr. Barr in their letter. The lawmakers also called on the Attorney General to commit to using all the resources at his disposal to ensure only legal voters are being counted in a fully transparent manner. Also last week, the Nevada Republican Party sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department claiming they have received reports of at least 3,062 instances of voter fraud in the battleground state. "We expect that number to grow substantially," the party said in a tweet. "Thousands of individuals have been identified who appear to have violated the law by casting ballots after they moved from Nevada." The Trump campaign has filed lawsuits in several key battleground states that Biden won, asking local judges to either invalidate or stop counting mail-in ballots, a record number of which were cast this year amid the coronavirus pandemic. Now, earlier in the day, several prominent Republicans backed Trump's claims of voter fraud or his right to challenge the count, including Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Obviously, no states have yet certified their election results. We have at least one or two states that are already on track for a recount, and I believe the president may have legal challenges underway in at least 5 states, McConnell said during a floor speech on Monday. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 states have been singled out for election fraud, voter fraud. The Trump administration has also accused local election officials of not allowing their representatives to watch vote counts and claiming illegal votes were cast in states including Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. What do you have to hide that you won't even allow someone just to sit there quietly and oversee the counting of votes? What is the harm in that? You don't take these positions because you want an honest election, White House press secretary said during a press conference on Monday. What we are asking for right now is patience as we explore these equal protection claims among others. All right, that's what Kayleigh McEnany said. Now, as a reminder, states have until December the 8th to resolve election issues, including recounts and legal battles. The Electoral College members meet on December the 14th to finalize the outcome. Once again, you cannot allow voter fraud to exist. They need to do something, and they need to get on it fast, ladies and gentlemen. All right? The AG has already asked the Supreme Court to overturn the Pennsylvania ballot rulings. Guess who else raising? I know, you guys, you can't make this stuff up, but more people are weighing in. Here's one you haven't heard of from in a long, long time, but the name will ring bells. Ken Starr. Pennsylvania ballot extension, a constitutional travesty. Former independent counsel Ken Starr has described the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision to allow late arrival mail-in ballots as a constitutional travesty, saying that only the state legislature has the authority granted by the Constitution to set such terms. Starr, a former circuit judge and former Solicitor General of the United States, told Fox News, Life, Liberty, and Levin that he believes the federal Supreme Court would now do its duty. Ladies and gentlemen, this is abominable. It really is. McConnell backs Trump in push for recount, says shouldn't accept election results from the media, which I agree. Who is the media? Oh, their job is to read from a teleprompter what is being spoon-fed to them. They don't have an opinion. It's given to them. So who's giving them this opinion? And who's allowing this to happen? Once again, you need to do the knowledge to it. Okay? You got to do the knowledge to this. So where does this leave us? I know where it leaves us. ESPN is cutting 500 jobs. The network blames COVID. Fails to mention ratings plunge due to woke messaging. You see, their propaganda is starting to backfire on them. They're losing their grip on the minds of the American public. ESPN is cutting 500 jobs. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. They're cutting another 500 jobs as pressures from the COVID-19 pandemic are weighing on the sports network. Apparently, the restart of almost all major sports, albeit draped in political messaging for the last 6 months, hasn't been enough to save the network from a fresh round of layoffs. The network is blaming the coronavirus. Of course, everyone is blaming the coronavirus for their failure. Naturally, because it certainly can't blame its own politicized discussions during almost every major sporting event it has broadcast over the last 6 months. A memo circulated on Thursday from Jimmy Patero, the head of ESPN, said the cuts will include 300 layoffs and the elimination of another 200 open positions. The company has 5,000 employees worldwide, according to the LA Times. The memo said, quote, prior to the pandemic, we had been deeply engaged in strategizing how best to position ESPN for future success amidst tremendous disruption in how fans consume sports. The pandemic's significant impact on our business clearly accelerated those forward-looking discussions, end quote. The cuts are reportedly occurring across several departments, and employees will learn about their future at the network next week. During the beginning of the pandemic, ESPN had lost a fair amount of its programming when Major League Baseball and the NBA both appended their season early. Now, since the leagues have decided to get woke, embracing the political Black Lives Matter messaging before coming back on the air, they have seen their ratings plunge. The cuts come right after ESPN's parent company, Disney, also announced a sweeping round of more than 25,000 job cuts days ago. Recall back in early October when it was reported that the network was planning sweeping layoffs. We noted that the network was trying to cut tens of millions of dollars in salary. Now, days prior to that, it was pointed out it missed a ratings plunge. The NBA is likely going to be pulling its Black Lives Matter messaging from its courts and jerseys next season. Here's the full text of the memo that went out to ESPN employees per CNBC. Dear colleagues, as you know, we value transparency in our internal dialogue, and that means in both good and challenging times. After much consideration, I have difficult organizational decisions to share. We'll be reducing our workforce, impacting approximately 300 valued team members, in addition to 200 open positions. Today is hard because ESPN has always been and will always be fortified by its fantastic people, teamwork, dedication, spirit, and grit have built this place and are what makes ESPN special. Prior to the pandemic, we have been deeply engaged in strategizing how best to position ESPN for future success amidst tremendous disruption in how fans consume sports. People were shut in at the house, ladies and gentlemen. They could have easily turned to your channel, but they tuned out because they got tired of the rhetoric. They got tired of the political foolishness. They got tired of the propaganda. That's why they turned off your channel. Let this be a lesson to you, ladies and gentlemen. In closing, on September the 18th of the year 96 AD, a fairly obscure and elderly politician named Marcus Cosicius Nerva was proclaimed emperor of Rome by the Senate. Now, it should be noted that during this period in history, Rome was in chaos at the time. The empire had suffered from years of turmoil, years of economic decline, and oppression. That's right. Most of the last several emperors, going back before the suicide of Nero in AD 68, have been extremely destructive, plundering the treasury. We would call that today bailouts, waging expensive wars. Today we would call that military policing actions, okay, police actions, peacekeeping missions, and dismantling individual liberty. Today we would call that COVID-19. We would call that lockdowns. We would call that social distancing. We would call that taking away free speech. We would call that propaganda. We would call that putting up moats and walls around the truth. Simply put, we would call that censorship. The government was also extremely unstable. It was not uncommon at that point for emperors to be deposed or even assassinated. In fact, Nerva's predecessor, the Emperor Domitian, had literally been murdered that morning. Nerva was seen by many senators as the safe choice to take over the government. He was old, he was frail, he was sick, so he wasn't expected to last very long. Today, we would call that Joe Biden. The guy with the dementia, the one who acts like he has Alzheimer's, who can't remember, who can't talk straight without stuttering and forgetting his train of thought. Most of all, Nerva was completely unremarkable. He had spent his entire professional life in the service of the empire, yet his name is barely mentioned in any historical record or associated with any major achievement. But unremarkable was exactly what Romans felt like they needed at the time. Nerva would be a break from the chaos, or so they thought. We know now, with the benefit of hindsight, that Rome would never fully recover. Rome would never fully recovery. Today we call that economic recovery. Not. Today we would call that cap, because there is no recovery. There would be a few good emperors along the way, people like Marcus Aurelius, who were able to temporarily hold back the decline. Today we would call that President Donald Trump. But the long-term trends were unstoppable. Rome was slowly going bankrupt. destroying its currency, and rejecting the basic principles of its civilization that made it so powerful and prosperous to begin with. Today, that will be analogous to the United States of America kicking God out of everything, taking down the Ten Commandments in the courthouse, not teaching creation, not talking about anything that had to do with the Bible, waging war on the Judeo-Christian faith, waging war on the God of the Bible. And no politician was able to put the brakes on those big trends and reverse the inevitable decline. That's right. No politician, ladies and gentlemen, was able to stop the decline. No matter how many empty water pails you have, it wasn't enough empty buckets to scoop out all of the water from the sinking Titanic. This is a common theme throughout history, ladies and gentlemen. Empires rise and fall, not because of a single individual, but from decades of major trends that gradually cause an inevitable decline. These same trends keep surfacing over and over again across the centuries, throughout millennia. Economic mismanagement is an obvious one. Empires in decline almost invariably hold an arrogant belief that they are exempt from the natural laws of finance. You cannot suspend the laws of physics. You cannot suspend the laws of economics and finance. In other words, they believe they can spend as much as they want, create money out of thin air, bailouts forever, economic monetary stimulus for the financial markets forever. They think they can accumulate infinite amounts of debt and debase their currency without limit. And somehow there won't be any consequences. Another trend is that the empire abandons its core values, such as integrity, civic mindedness, and hard work, give way to corruption and entitlement. Corruption and entitlement. Corruption and entitlement. Voter fraud is corruption. Entitlements. Medicare, Medicaid, all those social programs that cannot be funded. Another trend is that the empire abandons its core values. And perhaps the biggest trend of empires in decline is that society frequently turns on itself. Civility ends, chivalry along with it, and rage takes over. Rage. It goes without saying that these trends are alive and well in the West today, especially in the land of the free. U.S. finances have been in disarray for decades. The stock market has been divorced from the economy for decades. Just this year alone in 2020, the national debt has grown by a whopping $4 trillion. And the Federal Reserve has conjured another $3 trillion out of thin air. And even before COVID-19 pandemic was talked about in the back rooms up to a year before they rolled it out, even before that struck us, when the economy was firing on all cylinders, the government was still adding more than $1 trillion each year to the deficit, to the debt. Now there are entire factions of politicians that want to take those numbers to the next level. Everybody wants a piece. In fact, there's an entire school of economics now called modern monetary theory, which poses that governments can simply print as much money as they want without consequence. This is pretty classic empire arrogance, ladies and gentlemen. But again, the even more powerful trend now is the growing rage that is so prevalent. We've seen it unfold in front of our very eyes. Violence, arson, assault, looting, vandalism, intimidation, suicide at the highest rate it has ever been in U.S. history. More people now on psychotropic drugs than any time in U.S. history. And if this angry mob isn't out on the streets causing mayhem, they're on social media trying to destroy someone's life who committed the thought crime of intellectual dissent. The election results last week proved that the angry mob is still a numerical minority. Unfortunately, they are a very powerful minority that has taken over a number of important institutions, i.e., your universities and your local public school classroom. They already control the media. Objective journalism doesn't even exist anymore. It's just activism on top of propaganda. And if anyone needs any proof, look no further than a prominent CNN reporter weeping tears of joy over the weekend on live television. How can these people expect to be taken seriously as objective journalists? The mob has also taken over education too. Schools and universities are now filled with enraged Marxists who spend dozens of hours each week indoctrinating our children with their new woke religion. I told you about the new one world religion. That's right. You are paying to send your children to university so they can be propagandized and radicalized by Marxists. They've even reinvented science. They've reinvented history. They've reinvented mathematics to conform to the principles of critical race theory, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, Common Core, really? And instead of scientific method, we have scientism. The mob also exerts extreme influence over major corporations. You can't watch a Disney movie or an NFL game or even a commercial for men's razors anymore. And I will throw in there video games. You can't even play a video game without this hitting you in the face, without having identity politics shoved down your throat. Did you know that in 2K21, NBA 2K21, while the game is loading, they have a Black Lives Matter film that they play while the game is loading up? You have no choice. You can't skip it. You can't fast forward it. You can't even turn it off. Now in 2K19, you could turn off the 2K news reel from running while the game loads up. They stopped you being able to do that in 2020 and 2K21 because of all the ad revenue. They started selling more ad revenue slots, and the only way the ad revenue money, was to play it when the games are loading up. Oh yeah. Did you know they also hold extreme influence over big tech, whose one-sided censorship policies have become so absurd they started to rival the Chinese Communist Party? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Our big tech and the Chinese Communist Party, you can't tell the difference. Over the weekend, for example, Twitter was ablaze with activists who launched an accountability project to create a database archiving every supporter, every donor, every staffer, etc., who supported the current presidential administration. No lie. You can't make this stuff up. Technical blacklist brought to you by your top tech companies. The project tagline is "Remember what they did, and we must never forget." And they're targeting those who elected him and those who funded him, referring, of course, to the president and the 70 million people who voted for him. One reporter from the Washington Post deemed that everyone archived should never serve in office, join a corporate board, find a faculty position, or be accepted into polite society. She concluded her thinly veiled threat by saying, "We have a list." Twitter, of course, did not see fit to censor this shining example of objective journalism, which now has 40,000 likes. It's a pretty blatant sign of decline when people start keeping lists of political opponents they want to punish. And this madness is just getting started. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been warned. This is happening. Now, if someone did the opposite and said, "We have a list too of everyone that supported Biden," and flip the script, they will be trying to bring lawsuits claiming that you threatened them. They would say that that's they call you a homophobe, they call you a racist, any title they can put on you. But when they do it, oh, this is fine. It's okay for us to do it. You just can't do it. And you know why that this is being done and propagated? Is because they want a civil war. All right? You need to understand that. You need to understand that. Biden is on a double precipice of the worst ever economic depression, coupled with imminent explosions of social rage, all manufactured and well-funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and George Soros and other foundational groups, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, you name it. The massive PSYOP is ongoing. Everyone familiar with the Transition Integrity Project, known as TIP, the Transition Integrity Project, knew how this would imperatively play out. They knew it. This is a live exercise, yet no one knows exactly how it will end. U.S. Intel is very much aware of well-documented instances of election fraud. Among them, the NSA software that infiltrates any network, as previously detailed by Edward Snowden, and capable of altering vote counts. The Hammer supercomputer and its scorecard app that hacks computers at the transfer points of state election computer systems and outside third-party election data vaults, the Dominion software system known to have serious security issues since 2000, but still used in 30 states, including every swing state, those by now famous vertical jumps to Biden in both Michigan and Wisconsin at 4 a.m. on November the 4th, unconvincingly tried to debunk Wisconsin and didn't even try with Michigan. Multiple instances of dead men do vote. The key actor is the deep state, which decides what happens next. They have weighed the pros and cons of placing as candidate a senile stage 2 dementia neocon warmonger and possibly extortionist along with Son as leader of the free world, campaigning from a basement incapable of filling a parking lot in his rallies, and seconded by someone with so little support in the Dem primaries that she was the first to drop out. The optics, especially seen from vast swaths of the imperial, infiltrated global south, may be somewhat terrible. Dodgy elections are a prerogative of Bolivia and Belarus, yet only the empire is able to legitimize a dodgy election, especially in its own backyard. The GOP is in a very comfortable position. They hold the Senate and may end up picking up as many as 12 seats in the House. They also know that any attempt by Biden-Harris to legislate via executive order will still have consequences. The Fox News New York Post angle is particularly enticing. They are suddenly supporting Biden, way beyond internal family squabbles worthy of the Rupert Murdoch. He made it very clear that via the laptop caper that he has all sorts of information on the Biden family. So they will do whatever he wants. Murdoch does not need Trump anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been informed. You have been warned. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to say. What more do you want from me? What is the American public going to do about it? I don't think they can do anything about it. I think their brains are so fried with all of the propaganda and all that stuff that they don't even know which end is up. They really don't. So we'll see what happens, but you can expect until this election situation is 100% resolved that the markets are going to be mixed and volatile. So prepare yourself in the days and weeks ahead. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be a bumpy ride. All right. And watch out for that Bitcoin. Like I told you, if you're following the PulseWave reports, you should have already been taken out of that long position with mad profit. As far as a place, is it going to continue in the upward bias, or are you going to get a sell signal? That is yet to be seen. But, I'll keep you posted with the pulse waves. With that being said, you guys, you know what it is. Bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get what? Slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. Smash that like button. I'm out. Peace.